You now have your differentiation. That's your brand's promise plus your brand's personality. It's really the only true differentiation there is for a business. So the pieces of your brand are starting to come together, but a brand doesn't exist until people know about it. So it's time to address your brand communication, getting people to know about your brand. Because of brand clutter, that's the deluge of brands fighting for the customer's attention, it's extremely difficult for your brand to get the attention that it deserves. Sometimes you literally only have seconds to get the customer's attention and tell your story, to communicate your differentiation. And the most effective brand communication tool you have is the tagline. So in this lecture, you're going to learn how to break through the brand clutter and communicate your brand differentiation. That way you can begin a relationship with a new customer. So let's learn how to create a tagline for your business.
And we'll get started with a quick review. Because a tagline is all about your brand, let's make sure we are clear about what the brand is. So the definition of a brand is an emotional, psychological relationship between a business and customers. One of my favorite short definitions of a brand is it's a gut feeling. These gut feelings are important because they separate your brand in a cluttered branding marketplace. At the heart of every brand is the brand promise. It's the most essential piece of your brand foundation. And your brand promise is what you promise to deliver to the customer beyond the product or service you happen to sell. Brands are not built on products. Brands are relationships. Relationships are built on trust and promises, both expressed and implied or understood. Your promise plus your personality are the substance of your brand differentiation. Your differentiation is what differentiates your brand, and it is the goal of brand communication to communicate your differentiation. That's a quick picture of branding. Let's get started with taglines. Because you have such a short window of brand communication opportunity, you will be using a short yet powerful form of brand communication, the tagline. So let's meet your primary brand communication weapon. And we'll start by answering the most obvious question. What is a tagline? Now we're going to turn to my friend Tagline Jim Morris for the definition. Jim has written hundreds of taglines over his career, probably thousands, perhaps his most famous being, "We're Flintstones kids, 10 million strong and growing." Now you know I'm in marketing, right? Anyway, Jim defines the tagline as the single most powerful, condensed, compact expression of your brand. So what is a tagline? It's a brand communication tool, and maybe the most important one you have. Let's look at this tagline. We'll leave the light on for you. You probably recognize it as the tagline for Motel 6. So here's the communication. A clean, comfortable room at an affordable price, just like staying at your relative's house. Don't worry about being late because we'll leave the light on for you. That's brand communication. That's what a tagline is. What does it do? Remember earlier during the definition of a brand, I said that brands are relationships. Relationships have an implied promise, and relationships are interactions between two personalities. So a tagline is a brand communication tool that communicates both your brand's promise and gives your brand a personality. People want personality in the brands they do business with. Now this tagline belongs to which brand? Think outside the bun. Taco Bell, of course. And what it says is, we're going to give you some unique food with an irreverent, offbeat personality. Taco Bell uses their tagline to flash their personality. Combined with their advertising campaign, it's pretty powerful brand communication. So what is a tagline? It's a brand flavor additive. It communicates a brand's personality or flavor, which makes a brand more distinct and more appealing. It's not just a boring business, it's a brand with personality. So let's test the effectiveness of these taglines. Say Taco Bell. Now say Taco Bell, think outside the bun. Say Motel 6. Or say Motel 6, we'll leave the light on for you. Can you see how the tagline communicates the brand's promise and acts as a flavor additive for the brand? So you know what it is, you know its function. What's the purpose of the tagline? Its purpose is to cut through the brand clutter. Wouldn't it be nice if you owned all the real estate in your industry? Well, you don't, because there's lots of brands cluttering up people's mind, diverting them away from your brand. So brand clutter is a big challenge. You need to break through that clutter and say, I'm different, try me. And that means you need to break through more than 3,000 advertising impressions every day. And break through the fact that people come in direct contact with more than 250 brands per day. Taglines are an invitation that customers receive to do business with you. Taglines break through the clutter to get people to want to try your brand. The few, the proud. If ever there were a tagline, and a brand for that matter, that was uncluttered, it's the U.S. Marine Corps. The Marines are an exclusive club. Not everyone gets to be a Marine, but for those who do, you get to be part of something special. We don't accept applications, only commitments. The Marine Corps tagline is an invitation to proud patriots to serve their country. So what is a tagline? It's a brand communication tool that reveals your brand's promise. It's a flavor additive. It reveals your brand's personality and gives it some flavor. People like brands with flavor. And it's an invitation that breaks through the brand clutter and invites customers to try you, to give you a chance. But perhaps the biggest benefit of the tagline is to you, the entrepreneur. Because what a tagline does is discipline you, the entrepreneur, to take your brand and put it under a magnifying glass, to dissect your brand, to look at it, and to figure out one thing. The one thing you want customers and potential customers to know that will invite them to do business with you. Because you have a limited amount of time to convince a customer to do business with you. Brand clutter prevents you from telling a customer everything, so you have to tell them one thing. And that's the power of a tagline. It communicates that one thing. In just a few seconds, it helps you break through the brand clutter and gets customers to try you. Sure does a lot, doesn't it? But a lot of marketing experts pose an interesting question. And it's a fair question. Do you need a tagline? I mean, after all, Google, Facebook, Apple, these big brands don't have a tagline. Do you need a tagline? I mean, if the big boys are doing it without taglines, maybe you can too. So to answer the question of whether or not you need a tagline, maybe you do, maybe you don't, here are some rules to help you decide. So the first is, the more undifferentiated your brand is, the more it needs a tagline. So if you are in a commodity business, or you're in a crowded competitive field, selling things that a lot of other people sell, and it's very competitive, you need a tagline. The more undifferentiated your brand is, the more crowded the marketplace, the more you need a tagline. Now, the more distinctive your brand is, the less it needs a tagline. Apple, Google, Facebook, very distinctive brands. Very little direct competition, right? Those are distinctive companies. Now, if you're the Apple of your marketplace, the Google, the Facebook of your marketplace, perhaps you don't need a tagline. However, if you are a new business, the newer a business is, the more it needs a tagline. It's very wise for new businesses to have a tagline to establish a brand presence in the marketplace. So do you need a tagline? Maybe, maybe not. If you're Google, Facebook, or Apple. However, on a local level, I think your brand is better communicated with one. So now that you understand what a tagline is and what it does, what makes a good one, let's break the tagline down and find out what makes a good and a bad tagline, because there are so many bad taglines out there. In fact, I think most taglines are bad, and that's because of two reasons. Number one, businesses just don't understand taglines and their role in marketing and branding. And number two, they don't create taglines the right way. So how do you know? What makes a good tagline? Well, first, as we already discussed, a good tagline communicates your brand's promise. And it does so with the voice of your brand's personality. But there's a third ingredient, when added, makes an ordinary tagline a good tagline. Maybe even an extraordinary tagline. And that ingredient is stickiness. Good taglines are ones that communicate your brand's promise and personality with stickiness, meaning they stick to your mind and they're memorable. Now, we'll get to the stickiness factor shortly. But now, let's see what makes a bad tagline. So, we know the ingredients of good taglines. What goes in the mix for a bad tagline? According to my friend Jim Morris, Tagline Jim, these are the ingredients of a bad tagline. The first one is making the tagline all about you, rather than the customer. We're number one in customer satisfaction for 35 years. We destroy the competition, meaning we love ourselves. So don't make the tagline about you. Make it about your promise and what it does for customers, what your business does for customers. Also bad are tagline fads. Now currently there are lots of taglines using the word life. It's a tagline fad. Also tagline fads are using current slang language that's destined to change. Fads, by their definition, are short-lived. So your tagline should have a long lifespan. Plan on using your tagline for 5 years, maybe longer. A tagline is not a fad. Bad tagline ingredient number 3, one-word taglines, like rising, upward, mobile. Now, even Jim Morris will admit that there are exceptions to every rule, but don't chance it. Stick to the rules, and you'll end up with a good tagline. Oh, there is one rule that Jim says should never be broken. Never, ever, ever put your tagline in quotation marks. Who are you quoting anyway? All right, let's get back to good taglines. It's time to deal with good tagline ingredient number 3, stickiness or memorability. Chip and Dan Heath wrote a best-selling book on stickiness called Made to Stick. And they define stickiness as your ideas, or in our case, your brand, is understood and remembered, and it has a lasting impact. Your brand changes your audience or the consumer's opinions and behaviors. Because there are so many ideas out there, so many brands, it's difficult to get your brand to stick. Especially since the brain has been trained to protect itself from the deluge of ideas and brands. Now, we're going to get to stickiness again when we learn about logos, but let's see how we can break through the brand clutter and make our brand communication sticky. Turns out there's a formula for stickiness, and it's an end run around the brain's protection mechanism. You see, our brain is inundated with sensory information, so much information, in fact, that it can't process it all. So it ends up ignoring most of what it sees and hears, all the normal stuff. That's why most brands are ignored by most people, because they are normal brands and normal things don't get the brain's attention. So if you want the brain's attention, you have to do something the brain won't ignore. And the best way to do that is to surprise the brain with something unexpected, surprising your customers with something unexpected. Because the brain is trained to ignore the expected, the normal. You must be unexpected, differentiated from the norm. That's one way. Another way to get the brain's attention, a second way, is to set your brand apart from its surroundings through contrast. When something looks and sounds different from everything around it, the brain takes notice, and you have the chance to make your brand sticky or memorable. So the stickiness formula is unexpectedness plus contrast equals stickiness. That's the formula we're going to use for your tagline stickiness. I've built it into the process you will learn shortly. But first, let's take a look at how this works with practical application. You've probably heard of De Beers. They sell jewelry. But they became famous for diamonds, or rather, they became famous by making diamonds famous. Consistently chosen as one of the greatest taglines of all time is De Beers' tagline. What tagline goes here? A diamond is forever. It's been used since 1948 and is generally thought of as having changed the diamond industry. Diamonds weren't always thought of as a forever thing before that. But why is this tagline so sticky? 2 reasons. It's our stickiness formula. It's unexpected and it's contrasted because De Beers could have said, make her feel special. That's why you buy diamonds, right? Or they could have talked about quality. The 4 C's, right? We have the highest quality. At Zales, they're the diamond store. Is that sticky? But at De Beers, a diamond is forever. De Beers changed the game. How? Well, first thing is they used a metaphor. A diamond is forever. And that metaphor told a story. There's a story written in those 4 short words. And people fill in their own personal memories and future memories into that story, in between those words. It's really a brilliant tagline. It's been used for more than 60 years. That's sticky. For a little contrast, meet Mr. Happy Crack. A few years ago, the Crack Team Foundation Repair in St. Louis introduced a new mascot. His name is Mr. Happy Crack. The Crack Team needed something for Mr. Happy Crack to say. You see, he has a mouth there. He needs something to say. And that was the Crack Team's new tagline. And Mr. Happy Crack says, a dry crack is a happy crack. In Mr. Happy Crack's first year, sales spiked, and they've continued climbing steadily every year since, even during the bad economy years. This tagline has personality, which many businesses don't let show. It's a big mistake to not give your business a personality. Humans are attracted to personality traits like friendliness, approachability, humility, empathy, humor. This is true whether the personality belongs to a person or a brand. So the Crack Team contrasted themselves from the commodity foundation repair competition, and they did it with personality, which they flashed in their tagline. That's powerful brand communication.
So now you know the purpose of a tagline. You know what makes a good and a bad tagline. You understand taglines. What do you need to get your tagline? That's the question, right? So in the next part of Lecture 2, you're going to learn how to create your tagline. Then you'll see the process that we use to create Missy's tagline for Vintage 101. After that, you can view the case study videos of her creating the Vintage 101 tagline. But as usual, I would like for you to take a break, digest the information you just received, even watch the video again. I suggest you take a day or an afternoon and start collecting taglines that you like. You're going to use these later on. But right now, build yourself a little tagline collection of good taglines. Now, when you do that, come back and watch part 2 of this lecture, and we'll begin creating your tagline.